12 a.m. on Tuesday, February 7th. I'd like to call to order the Westborough Economic Development Committee meeting. First on the agenda, we have to approve our minutes from January 10th. Anyone have any questions and comments? If not, if someone would be so kind as to make a motion, I'd appreciate it.
Motion to approve the minutes from the January 10th meeting.
Second that.
All right, and since we have people, I believe, remotely, we will have to do a roll call. So just, if you could, state your last name and your vote on it. So I'll start. Alexander, yes?
Zeff, yes.
Bagden, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Robbins, yes.
Varro, yes.
Williams, yes.
Keo, yes.
Holly, yes. Kenny, yes.
Riley, yes.
Great. Thank you all very much. Oh, yeah, one thing I do need to point out, I do have a hard stop at 8:45 a.m. I apologize. Mark will be taking over at that time. So first, I guess second on the agenda, we have Sustainable Westborough presentation from Pete Dunbeck. Pete, thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having me. I am Pete Dunbeck, the chair of Sustainable Westborough. The topic today is the building energy code change that's is happening right now as we speak. This came as a result of a climate bill that was signed in March of 2021 that directed and kind of restructured how the building energy code is generated. It's now generated by the Department of Energy instead of BBRS, and it's somewhat disruptive in the way it's been generated. Part of this is that the DOER is mandated to meet the climate goals of the state. So it's changed the focus of the building energy code, and I think changed it quite dramatically. In discussions with Fred, in particular, there's issues with the rollout that we can kind of comment about as we go on. And now it's not forwarding. Okay. There we go. So we're going to start with kind of the foundation. What is the building energy code? What does it mean? How does it fit inside the bigger building code, which people refer to? What's changed this year in 2023? And then have a discussion on how it affects Westborough and economic development, and some ideas we put together with Zach and Fred in regard to for next steps. So the big picture. The building energy code is one part, the building energy code is one part of the Massachusetts Building Code. All of these are built on international code standards of different flavors. And so this is built on the International Energy Conservation Code, and there's a version of that called the 2021 IECC Model Code. Massachusetts has followed this code for years. It's an update to the 2021 code. Massachusetts, being Massachusetts, always tweaks things, so we're tweaking it with a flavor in the base code. This has been done in the past also. This is an update. So the base code is changing. Beyond that, the stretch code is changing, the stretch energy code. And for the first time, there's another code called the specialized opt-in code. And so each of these is different flavors of the energy code. Important to note that the stretch energy code is the predominant code in the state of Massachusetts. 299 out of 351 municipalities, including Westborough, have adopted it. So we don't require a bylaw change to adopt the new stretch energy code. It's in our bylaws already that we're following the state code. The state code has changed, so we're following that change. So that's the code we're predominantly going to be discussing today. Timing-wise, the base code is actually getting changed effective July 23, July of this year. The stretch energy code has got kind of a staggered roll-in with the residential code changing January, so it's already in effect, and the commercial code coming in play in July of 23. The residential code actually is rolling out in two steps, but I'll focus primarily today on the commercial code. And as mentioned earlier, the specialized code is an opt-in, requires a vote of town meeting to change our bylaws to point to that third flavor of the energy code. The scope, the residential code is 1 to 4 unit buildings. New construction also includes large additions and certain level 3 alterations over 1,000 square feet. Importantly, the commercial code is all building types, including large residential, so developments like the Pulte development at the state hospital property would be under this code. It's new construction, and it's also a change for the first time. It's additions, alterations, and change of use for buildings. So there's more capture in regard to how the code is getting interpreted also with this new code. And Fred, you can keep me honest if I misstate any of the nuance of this. From an energy and a perspective, there was a structural change that I alluded to in the fact that DOER is driving the change, and it's focused instead on the aggregate energy use in the building, which the previous stretch energy codes had focused on the aggregate energy. So it was all the lights, all the power, the electricity, as well as the heating fuels used in the building. The new code is very much focused on thermal efficiency and create a design of a building that reduces the demand for heating and cooling. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's a dramatic change. A 90% reduction in the thermal efficiency of the building is required. And as kind of alluded to in the earlier comments, it addresses all building sizes, including alterations and additions. So what does it mean to focus on thermal efficiency? Down the left side, these are like the 3 main pillars of what needs to get done. You need to increase the quality of the envelope, seal the buildings, reduce air leakage, have all of the air exchange in and out of the building controlled, and do it through a controlled process where the energy is exchanged so that the energy in the vented air is recovered on the way out. And then also to minimize the thermal bridges, which are kind of solid paths for energy to get out of the building versus the air leaks, which is the first point. So by putting money into these factors, you save money on the right side. You have much less equipment. Your heating systems and cooling systems can be a fraction of the size. I have a friend that used to work at the Department of Energy, built a net zero building. He says his home, if you turn off the heat, it takes like 2 days before it cools down because it's so well sealed. So you get much smaller equipment. It's actually implemented in Fales also. They have a high efficiency building and have smaller heating systems as a result. Less use of the heating system, it's improved durability. From an environmental perspective, it's easier to electrify, so you can get to fewer carbon emissions. And because there's no drafts and leaks and stuff, it's more stable, the temperature, it's more comfortable inside.
Does Mass Save confirm all that for residents when they have an energy?
Two parts of Mass Save comment. One is this is new construction, so it's more on the building manager's side versus the Mass Save. Mass Save also manages a lot of rebates, so Mass Save provides rebates which support the purchase of the equipment that's alluded to on the right. But the building design itself is not managed by Mass Save. It's managed by the building departments.
Thank you.
So obviously, cost is always a factor in all of these decisions. A study was done by the folks at the bottom there with their logos, and a statewide study drove this, and their analysis was that all building designs following this would have a lower life cycle cost than the previous code. And most of them, or many of them, would have a lower first time cost. I've looked at the detailed analysis. It's pages and pages beyond my ability. So, but I'm assuming these are expert groups, and they've determined that they're lower life cycle cost. And as mentioned earlier, an important change, particularly I think for Westborough and economic development locally, is this now includes a lot more of alterations and additions than previously covered. And it points, those alterations and additions, there's nuance of whether it points to the stretch code, and there's different paths for meeting the stretch code. One of them is called prescriptively. Important change of use. If you take a building that was office and you make it into lab or something like that, you now need to bring it all the way up to the full stretch code. I would like to have introduce a time for discussion. One of the things that I'd like to discuss is we'd like to consider, Sustainable Westborough would like to consider when is the right time to upgrade to the specialized code. It is not immediately, I'd say, just to put people at ease at that. My understanding is there is a state program that's going to bring in new grant money and opportunity to incent towns to opt in. That's what they did with the stretch code, and the entire state eventually basically moved to the new stretch code. I think they're going to do the same thing. The first movers moving into the stretch code are the ones who got the most money. So I think we'd be wise to look at the opportunity. And from my listening to DOER webinars and stuff, the difference between the stretch and the specialized code in the commercial space is not dramatically different. We don't know what the incentives are, so there's not a lot of motivation for moving immediately, but I think that's going to come out in the next 3 months. So how does this affect Westborough and economic development is kind of the discussion topic or an offer for discussion.
And I mean, first, I know that Pete has, conveyed a lot of information here. I think, really I would think about discussion and feedback in two parts. The first is, the stretch code update that's coming for commercial buildings in July of 2023 and has already come for residential in January. Do you have any questions or reactions to that Fred and Pete can answer? And is there anything that the board should be doing to help prepare developers and commercial property owners for that coming change? And then I think the second is Pete's bit about, what would we need to believe and what kind of work do we need to do in order to, have the information ready to consider, opting in or not opting in to the specialized code.
Yeah, I would.
I was going to say, this is where I was going to lean towards, yeah.
Hello, I'm Mark Farrow. I work for Caruth Capital,
Sure.
and we own many of the large office buildings in Westborough. And I have a couple of points I'd like to make. One is that my recommendation is to stick with whatever the state requires. It's already a lot of work, and if you want to keep Westborough competitive commercially, then I would say don't go beyond what the state already requires, which is pretty good. The stretch code, accomplishes what it needs, and to get into the specialized code will put you at a competitive disadvantage. It's kind of funny because the company, we always installed energy efficient equipment for a long time. And the people I work for, as long as I could justify it economically, they went for it. I mean, we put in a solar array, which we couldn't build today because Westborough has the worst solar array. I could build a four-story apartment building closer to a lot line than I can a 33 by 33 foot solar field. There are a lot of existing buildings here, and I think one of the things that they might not take into account is how much air we have to bring into a building. So you can't let the carbon dioxide build up too much in a building. So what we've done is we've installed, and I'm sure the stretch code and all these have it too, is you install carbon dioxide sensors. So if you don't need the air, you don't bring it in. But how much energy you use depends a lot on the type of use, a lab, right? They bring in 100% air and blow it out again, and that's where you have and we use the energy recovery systems, but they're not that efficient. And then, where's all this electricity gonna come from? I mean, I personally had plans to build a lot of solar arrays in Westborough on our land. And when Westborough passed this, large ground-mounted solar array thing, which is 1,000 feet, 33 by 33 feet, including all the equipment, the inverters and stuff. I'm biting my tongue, but, you have sustainable Westborough. And what have you done in the past 5 years, or however many years that Westborough pretty much banned solar arrays? If you drive by our solar array on 495, the grass is growing under it. Animals go in there. We worked with our neighbors to put in a fence. We worked with the state.
Totally in agreement,
Yeah.
totally in agreement with all the
So
solar comments.
why haven't you done anything, making us, maybe with the specialized, making us uncompetitive in that part? But one of the reasons I installed the solar array is to attract companies that care about, sustainability and wanted to use solar array. It's kind of funny because the two companies that do that for, that do the rebates for Mass Save and the other one that manage Mass Save, they both went to buildings that didn't have solar,
So,
And if they don't do it, why would just a regular company do it when you have someone whose business is sustainability, can't be bothered to be in a building that's sustainable or stretch or specialized code?
yep, so, can I comment on
Sure.
that? So, excuse me. As you know, probably Chris was on Sustainable Westboro for a year, and Chris Egan was, I met with him before that even, and this zoning issue was highlighted. I think it's a big issue, and I think it needs to be addressed. I've talked to others who've developed solar in town. It got the exact same message. I've talked to Jim, and it's in the master plan. I think it's something we need to do. My understanding is in the master plan, there's a zoning work stream, and all of the feedback I'm getting is that all of those changes need to be done in a coordinated way with the rest of the zoning work. And I defer to Christie or Jim to understand differently, but I'm very much in favor of reviewing and changing the problems that you've identified in regard to solar zoning. I think I'm not an expert at it, but I have read what we have, and it seems quite onerous.
It's
So
very onerous.
and
It's the worst of any community that we do business in. 1,000 square feet, including any equipment. Houses are bigger than that,
So I'm on board with
Yeah.
that change, and Sustainable Westboro doesn't own the zoning code. We need to work through the planning department and the planning board and so forth, and we've initiated those discussions within the master plan process as well as the climate action plan. So I'm in agreement with that. You're good with that? I mean, I
Yeah,
agree with
well, it's
everything you
just,
said.
Westboro should pull its share before
I agree.
you go to specialized code and drive businesses away. You need to, carry your own water and provide that electricity that it has to come from somewhere.
So have you looked at the specialized code? You're describing it as driving business away. What I've looked at, it's marginally different than the stretch code. And then there are incentives for the town, financial incentives for the town to adopt it. So I think it's really marginally different. And if you're putting in heat pumps, it's no different on a thermal different. The exact claims, I could flip to a backup slide, there are no changes. So I think we need to get into the details on what is being asked of us as the specialized code to see if it's adversarial to business. and to get the program that's positive for the municipality and weigh those two. So I'm not telling you today we need to do this, but we need to make the analysis, and it's going to be a balance.
Yeah.
And heat pumps don't work in large buildings. I mean, we actually have heat pumps, but we have a cooling tower in the summer that removes the heat from the heat pump system. And then in the winter, we have a gas boiler that provides the heat, the energy that the heat pumps, in the offices. But as far as your typical, what people think when you mention a heat pump that sits outside and you exchange the heat and cold with the air, those don't really work very well in an office building environment. And also, when you come in Monday morning or any morning, the building's set back at night, and you have to build the buildings back up to temperature first thing in the morning. They call it morning warm-up. You're not going to bring a 100,000-foot office building up to temperature in a short period of time with a heat pump. So you have to keep these heat pumps running all night to keep the building from getting too cold, because you can't warm it up fast enough. So there's practical things. I think a lot of people, when they think of office, they might think of small office buildings or houses or whatever. But when you're talking, the building we sold to Amazon is 685,000 feet. That's a lot of heat pumps.
Well, I think
Right.
Pete mentioned that I think we do need to take a look at, do an analysis on what it costs. You mentioned Amazon, Caruth Capital, it's easy for you guys to write a $900,000 check, but the cost of something like these, of what we're talking about implementing, how that impacts some of the smaller property owners, commercial property owners, I think that's something we need to consider as well. So I think before, you had mentioned doing an analysis and taking a look at the cost versus, kind of weighing the cost versus the benefits. And have you
So-
already done that, or is that
So-
something that?
So all of this analysis has been done by the state. I'm
Yeah.
not a construction professional, so I can't read these documents and
Yep.
interpret whether it's good work or find flaws in it. So I invite you to go look at it. This presentation's been shared. And kind of one of our next steps is to go and meet with the key stakeholders, Caruth and other developers in town, smaller business owners, and get that feedback. And we also need to get clarity from the state of what the benefit is. If the state doesn't come out with a good benefits package, certainly deferral is the better option. But if they come out with a good benefits package, then you got something to put on the scales and balance. And we should be fact-driven in your experiences or facts.
And some tenants will, and building users will want the extra, like we've had people that want LEED buildings, right?
Yep,
In 50 Washington Street, we did LEED, and 800 West Park Drive was a LEED certifiable building. That's because Olympus wanted that.
Yep.
So I'd just like to go on record for completely different reasons than has been expanded upon as of right now. Fred's saying that, unlike Pete, I'm a little more hesitant, and I'd actually fight against going to specialized codes initially. It's not based on the merits or the difference between what we'll have to do for a code now. It's more based on the rollout. Having been involved with subgroups, specifically with the Department of Energy Resources, there is no coordination, or virtually little, between the Department of Energy Resources and the Building Board of Regulations and Standards. So right now, there's a debate locally to whether even the enforcement of the energy code is legal or not. So the BBRS is not coming out vocally in supporting the new energy code, which is the first time I've ever seen this happen. Until they kind of get their crap together, if you will, I'm not in favor of this, only because the rollout has been very sketchy at best. And I've made that vocally known in the subgroup that I've been involved in. The residential code is coming into effect as of January 1st. I don't have a comfortable feeling that towns will enforce it uniformly across the state. And I suspect the commercial code will be much the same. There's been little to no training on this for the enforcement part of this. So until that gets coordinated, I'd be hesitant to advise that we go into more than we're already trying to chew off now. There's been debate even between the experts on how you enforce the commercial code. A lot of it goes into modeling. And they're still working on that. And as I say this, I know this firsthand because they haven't, the commercial code, we still have some time, but they're working on guidelines now that haven't even been written yet on how we would enforce the code. So that guideline doesn't even exist as we speak. Hopefully we'll have updates in the next few weeks and waiting for a next subgroup meeting. But for those reasons, not so much that there's a difference between the specialized opt-in code and the stretch code, but until we get a good handle on how that's going to be implemented, I'd be opposed to going, or be at the forefront of that. I don't think we want to be there until it's been kind of worked out. But that's my, my opinion based on the involvement I've had with the code directly.
And I respect that and his professional judgment on it, and we've had discussions for a few months on this issue. So the rollout, because DOER has taken it over, a separate agency from BBRS, exacerbated by the fact that the administration has changed with the new governor and new secretariats and stuff. The incentive package that was talked about last year for the specialized code has been put on hold, and I talked to the agency that does that, the Green Communities Division. It is uncertain when that incentive package. So I'm not saying do this now. I'm saying keep our eyes open. The benefits are going to come out. The difference between the two is going to come out. All the problems that the building department's struggling with legitimately with the rollout of that's going to get resolved. Lawyers are going to come and say you have to enforce it. You don't have to enforce it. Here's the training package, whatever. Over the next 6 months, that'll get sorted out. And then we'll have facts, we can make the decision at that time. I'm not saying make the decision today, but I am saying we're going to be looking at it. And the last time they came out with it, with the stretch code, the first movers got the most money.
And I think, you know, kind of more broadly, one of the reasons why Pete, you know, wanted to talk about this today was to understand, okay, you know, over the next 6 months to a year to, you know, 18 months, what are the questions that we should be asking to build our fact pack for determining, you know, what course of action to take. And so, you know, I think we've heard some helpful feedback here today, but if there are any other comments to share, you know, now it would be helpful.
Anyone? No, thank you for that feedback, Fred.
I think it was good on all sides. I think
Yeah.
we kind of heard a bit from everyone.
Yeah,
think
I mean,
both
it's
sides of
definitely-
the issue here, and that's important to see that we got to watch over businesses
Yep.
as well as the future of the world. I
Sure.
guess is a balance
It-
between the two of them.
Something that should be on our radar
And
that we should
Fred
be
and I
starting to
aren't
focus on.
really at odds with this.
Right.
Yeah.
We
right.
do different roles
Yeah, no.
and so forth. So I'm going to try to pull for change for the goals I've been given.
Yep.
And he's got to manage a day-to-day shop. And I get that. And we have
Yeah.
to make both work.
Well, so the other thing I would say is that regardless if you want to embrace electrification of buildings and the use of electrical power, if you will, you're not going to have a choice. I mean, the legislation is pushing this that way. I think you're going to see more and more of that. So by the same token, I'm hesitant to jump in feet first, but I'm also saying that if you stand by the wayside and don't do anything, you get run over by this too.
Right.
So, you know, I don't want to say it's a double-edged sword, but you have to be progressive in how you look at this
Right.
from a town's perspective, because if you don't, as I said, you're going to be playing catch-up. The DOER has been given more power than this has actually festered for many years. We've had conversations years ago in regional meetings. So it's not a new phenomenon, but it's starting to pick up more and more speed. So if you don't embrace it, as I said, I think you're going to get run over by it at some point.
Okay.
Yeah, so with different skills and different perspectives, we're keeping our eyes open. We're discussing it a lot, and we're going to do the best for Westborough.
Yeah, and let's keep an open line of communication between the EDC and Sustainable Westborough.
Yep.
And obviously, it's something we need to have on our radar for the next few months.
And change is coming fast, and there's
Yeah.
going to be cost pressures on fossil fuels. Prices are going to be driven up by the
Right.
state programmatically, and it's going to be incenting people toward electricity, and it's going to be a very complex environment to
Sure
navigate.
is.
So the plan that Fred, Zach, and I are discussing is to meet one-on-one with key stakeholders over the next 4 to 6 months,
Okay,
from developers to the businesses to building owners, and educate on the awareness, make everybody aware of the changes beyond the people present, and also discuss the impact of the changes, both specialized and the stretch code, and get that feedback. Some of that is going to require more understanding of what the differences are, which is going to take time. The reality of running Fred's building department has got to be put on the table. Those are real issues. I'm not saying do the specialized code now. Do it a year from now, maybe. Let's spend 4 to 6 months getting smarter and come back and make a decision. Or give you an update in the summer. Even
Yeah.
at the end of the summer, we may not be ready for a decision.
sure. Yeah. Okay, great.
And sorry, just before Pete leaves, I want to, if you don't mind flipping back to the slide on the one prior to this, I just want to make sure that everybody here understands, kind of outside of the specialized opt-in discussion, that the stretch code for commercial
Right.
buildings will be changing in
Right.
July of 2023, and I think this slide, Pete, if you want to, or Fred, go over it a little bit, provides a useful sort of overview of what this might mean, practically speaking, for commercial development.
So I can take a crack at it, and you can elaborate if you like.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to excuse myself, but you know what, if you would be able to, Pete, if you could share that with Zach, and Zach could, if you're willing to share your presentation that you gave us today.
It is on Dropbox.
Okay, all right, great, all right, thank you. I'm sorry I have to go. Thanks for taking over.
Just
Okay.
continue, go ahead, guys, you continue where you're at.
I did gloss over this a bit, and Zach would like a minute on it. So additions and alterations are a significant change with this new stretch energy code. And again, we're back into the one we're already on track to implement. It includes additions up to 100% of the existing building or over 20,000 square feet. And then you need to implement the new stretch energy code in the prescriptive path. Second row is basically the same thing. Either of those are exceeded. The addition is treated like new construction, so it's all of the requirements of new construction. If you alter a building, only the altered portion, and my interpretation of this is if you, put a new lobby or put conference room and a bathroom in the corner of a bigger building, only that portion that got altered would need to follow the stretch code, the rest of the building would not. Or if you do the change of use, from, the example earlier of, there's the building on East Main Street. If that medical building was turned into residential, that would be a change of use, and that would require upgrading it to the stretch energy code.
Okay.
I know, I did want to just put a little plug. We have a new energy fair coming, so on May 13th, we're going to have an environmental action fair, which is our now second annual fair, and it's going to be at the high school this year. So we're just this week putting out our initial announcements of this. Stay tuned for more information.
Okay. Does anyone
All
else
set.
have any questions or anything, or comments?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Peter, thank you very much for coming in, and please, we look forward to seeing you in the summer, and hopefully, we can all work together. It's good to hear all sides of issues, I think, so, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we have discussion on the business grant program, which was Todd, who had to take off. I don't know if, Zach, do you have anything that you can talk to on this, or should we put this forward to next?
We can table it for the next, I don't think it's particularly urgent. I think I'll just provide a little bit of context. At the last meeting, we talked about the warrant article, which we bring to town meeting in March. I think Todd wanted to create a, space to discuss, how the EDC might want to consider grant making should the warrant article be approved at town meeting, whether or not we would want to maybe, hold the funds until May or hold the funds until June, and then look at all applications that we might have received this year at one time. So that I know that that's been a kind of ongoing discussion for the board, is whether or not, it's more helpful to look at everything at one time versus to do it quarterly like we've been doing. Or, if there are any other changes to the program that we want to make, I kind of think now is a good time to start vocalizing those discussions, because things are on pause, and we have some time to look at the program and make any kind of modifications. So if there's anything that folks want to mention now that in the next month I can do a little bit more research into or something like that, I'm happy to, but otherwise we can table it for next month.
Anyone have anything they'd like to bring up, or?
I think we could make it a subject of discussion next
Yeah,
March.
I think it makes sense.
Because we'll have time before the town meeting.
Okay, that makes sense, great. And then we talked about bring an article forward to do the changes, but you'll get back to me about that, so.
Indeed.
Easy peasy. All right. Next, so we just jumped ahead in the agenda here. So next, we have the update from Zach on the night market project.
Actually,
Did I
sorry.
jump one?
I think
Oh.
we,
I'm sorry, I missed the small business awards. I apologize. Discussion on the EDC new small business award winner. Sorry, Zach.
no worries.
I jumped too there.
Great. So as you may recall, at our last meeting, the EDC voted to award two of our awards for the Year in Review Award Celebration, the Innovation Award and the New Development Project Award. You guys decided to put 3 awards to public vote, and we decided on the nominees for that. But there was one remaining category where we need to pick a winner. The names in blue are the nominees that you had stated as nominees at the last meeting. You had also asked me to take a look at who we've awarded grants to, and other new businesses that we might be aware of over the last year. And so I added a few businesses in gray below here. These are all grant winners that we that weren't mentioned at the last meeting. And so I just wanted to throw this up there and encourage the board to award one of these businesses with the new Small Business Award at the Year in Review celebration. As a reminder, the new Small Business Award recognizes a new and exciting locally owned business in our community. I believe all of these businesses fit that criteria. And as a reminder, the other category, or there's a similar category called New Downtown Business, which will be up for public vote. And, so there are other small businesses that have opened in town recently, but are being considered as nominees for that award. So this is really new small businesses outside of downtown, the immediate downtown area. Is there anything anyone would like to say about any of these these nominees or potential nominees, or anyone that we might want to add that we've left out?
I can't remember all the names of the grant recipients, but I know all of them didn't get grants. But I think you said that the 4 in gray did. I think Main Street and Crystal Mine got grants. I think. I'm just trying to think that we want to promote. Not say we're looking to hand an award away to someone that we gave an award already gave money to, but I think to promote the grant program on the back end, I think is a good way of promoting the grant program.
Mm-hmm. So Liquor Point did not receive a grant, and they did apply twice.
Okay.
Kid Strong, Revive Med Spa, Be Remembered did receive grants. Play Now did not receive a grant, but Main Street Pastries and More and a Crystal Mine did as well.
Okay.
I don't believe Torito or Usra Venues received grants either.
Okay, I was just thinking, just as a.
This is Holly. I have one other question. On the agenda that I had downloaded, I have, and we all do, the other ones are Central Mass, Winthrop Wealth, Sullivan, Christ Financial, and Hall of Comics. We decided to drop those. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. Those were from nominees that I suggested at the last meeting from looking at building permits.
Okay.
And
Clarify.
yeah, it did. If I recall correctly, and if my interpretation of the minutes is correct, it seemed like the board wanted to, move forward as nominees with these 5 businesses in blue. But then, we also wanted to cross-check with grant winners and grant applicants, which is where the new gray names have come from,
Okay,
basically.
perfect. Thanks, Zach.
So does anyone have anyone they'd like to particularly nominate for this award? Anyone they've worked with the business or can put a motion forward?
I'll make a motion. This is Holly Kenny. I'd like to nominate Play Now for the new small business grant in Westborough, 2023.
Small business, yep. Small business award, whatever we call it. Yeah, award winner. Zeph will second that, just so we can discuss it. Any discussion on Play Now? It's the small toy store down in Westborough Shopping Center next to the Staples and the Art and Frame Emporium there.
And also, if anyone has any questions about any of these businesses at all, or if it would be helpful for me to do a brief description of each of them, I'm happy to do that as well. But
No, I mean, I've met the owners the owners of Play Now came in for a grant. I guess you told me they didn't. Did we give them a grant? I can't remember now.
I do not believe so,
They
no.
did not get a grant from us, but seemed like a nice family. They have 3 stores, all locally owned in Massachusetts. They bring unique business into town that we don't have. A non-Target toy store, I guess, shall we call it, that a grandmother can go to and enjoy and buy something that isn't quite as nice. So I guess they're, a positive asset to the community, I would think. So I would have no problem with them winning this award.
Do you have any idea how many employees, Zach?
I do have a record of it somewhere because we asked them for the
3 to
grant.
5, I would bet.
I don't recall
Kind
exactly
of
how
an
many.
unfair question without, but.
Yeah, I would guess 3 to 5, but that's just an assumption.
I mean, I'm sure they're all worthy in some way. I mean, I will say that traditional retail has its challenges. So for somebody to come out with a specialized product in competition with, as you say, the likes of the Targets and the Walmarts and everybody else, I mean, I tip my hat for that effort.
Yeah, I'll also add too, when I met with this business, they did indicate that their search for a new location was pretty far and wide. I think, I forget, their other Massachusetts-based store
Deerfield,
is in Springfield or
Deerfield,
East
Westfield,
Springfield, something
yeah.
like that. Very are in Western Mass, and so they looked at a lot of places and locations, and they, I think, really fell in love with Westborough and Westborough Shopping Center, which I think is always, a good story to highlight as well. But, I echo.
I'm sorry, I was going to say that I think, there's also Learning Express, but I just like the fact that we have now another option. And what Dave was saying, I think I commend them for starting up a new business right now. And I'm always a big supporter of the small retail. So that's my take.
Is there any more discussion on this? Then I guess we'll call to a vote Holly's motion, which was to award this year's Small Business Award to Play Now Westborough. So I'll start and we'll go around. Zeph, yes?
Bagden, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Robbins, yes.
Verow, yes.
Keo, yes.
Williams, yes.
Kenny, yes.
Brantley, yes.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Excellent. So
Great.
Great. Thank you very much, Zach. And I guess if you want to stay there, since I went out of order, we're going to go to the night market next once you're done.
We'll stay here.
Do we get any feedback on the voting, Zach? I meant?
On the voting?
Yeah, or have we not put that out yet?
No, we have not put that out yet. I'm still trying to finalize the date with the governor's office. Unfortunately, the lieutenant governor's office. Unfortunately, I only had campaign emails, so
Yeah.
it didn't occur to me for a few weeks that the reason why I wasn't getting responses was because I was
Not on the new
emailing
one.
campaign emails that are no longer active since they took office in the inauguration. But I did make contact with their scheduler last week, and she says the lieutenant governor is excited and interested, and they're just trying to work out the date details. I gave them a couple of options. I think we're still kind of flexible. Given the timing and how much time has elapsed since I've tried to coordinate with the Lieutenant Governor's office, I think it would be better, and I've suggested to them the final Friday of April, which would be like the same time that we did it last year. But I also gave them a couple of options on Fridays earlier in April that aren't during the school vacation week.
Right.
So hopefully we can confirm that this week, and then the plan would be to send out save the dates by the end of the month, and formal invitations mid-March, and we'd be asking for RSVPs by late March, early April.
Yeah, that's great, thank you. I meant as far as the public voting on the other awards.
No, I have not released that yet.
Okay, thank you.
And excuse me while I find my other slide.
I guess while you're doing that, I guess it would make sense to release it with the announcement of the date as sort of, otherwise people aren't going to come back to the site if they've already voted, maybe.
Thank you, good point.
It's always a real adventure trying to
Chicken and
tie
egg,
all of the loose strings of this
Well,
event.
we were spoiled for many years because Ms. Polito just did it. So we're always able to coordinate her schedule.
It was a nice commute for her.
We were fortunate in that we had contacts with the governor's office because there were town officials that worked on the governor's campaign. So we had a direct line to Karen Polito and Charlie Baker's office.
Great. Transitioning a little bit to the night market project. As you may know, I've been working with several individuals offline to brainstorm some ideas for where this project can go, because I think as we discussed, the vision is I think a little bit more flexible than some of the other LRP projects that we've worked on. So kind of two options for how this event might look emerged as leaders. The first, option A, is kind of building on some of the energy that several downtown businesses, I believe including several of our EDC members' businesses, have done, which is extending their hours on I believe it's a Thursday night, but on maybe one night a month, and picking that night, giving it some kind of brand, like downtown's open late or something like that, and really using the EDC to recruit other businesses downtown to try and stay open on that one night. And market and promote the event, maybe incorporate other elements something to draw people in, like a scavenger hunt or like a sip and shop or something like that as well. But the major difference from option A to option B would be that there wouldn't be a fixed location. We wouldn't be setting up stalls for businesses that are outside of downtown to set up. It would be an event that would be ideally regularly recurring, depending on feedback that we get, where downtown's open. Businesses that are downtown are open late, and the EDC helps get people involved and market and promote that. Option B is, I think, more of a traditional night market, where it would be sort of a bazaar style pilot project somewhere downtown, potentially Bay State Green, potentially in the Great Hall, or maybe at the high school or something like that, to host businesses in maybe not stalls but at tables to showcase their business, or maybe to offer samples or sell some product. Would be similar to the SOWA winter market or like a farmer's market downtown. And I would envision that because of the work that it would take to set something like that up, we might only do it once to start and then see what people say, and then consider doing it again in a future year, or whatever cadence makes sense. But I wanted to share these options with you all, and get a sense of your feedback, whether or not there's excitement around either one, or something totally different that we should be considering for this project. I'll leave it to you all.
I like the idea of, well, I like both, but I think we did something similar to B when we initiated the winter stroll, where businesses who were part of it would have to come downtown and set up a table on West Main Street. And we found that a lot of the small businesses didn't have the staff to keep their stores open and also table downtown. And so they just didn't come. And so I think that we would be creating barriers for small businesses that also had open hours at that time. So I guess I would want the business feedback to understand that, because we wouldn't want to be creating that barrier unintentionally.
I have a couple things, Zach.
Yep.
We've been talking about this at the same time at the cultural council meeting, so I wanted to talk with you and see if you were interested in coming to our next meeting and kind of exploring this more. A couple of our members have kind of been floating around an idea for the past year, but it kind of comes and goes off the agenda, about doing like a downtown after dark. And they didn't realize that we have money to do this for the EDC, and you've been working on it. So I'd love to get together both organizations, because I think that they might be able to provide some, legwork and resources and things to the EDC, and you do this, and then vice versa. So that's one thought I had. The other one is, in particular, I agree with Christy. I really like the idea of option A and kind of uniting businesses downtown, and maybe somehow bringing in, I don't know how we would do the other businesses. Option B, I've been heavily involved in coordinating the Arts in Common Festival in end of September, early October, for probably the last, 8 years or so, and it is a huge endeavor. It takes, everyone knows this, but it takes a lot of work. We start planning it in usually end of February for October. So it's a huge undertaking, just putting that out there. But I really like the idea of like the option A. I know some of us, like you mentioned, have already started to open on Thursday nights, but if we market it and get a good catch name for it, I think it could really take off. So those are my 2 cents.
I just wanted to respond to Holly. It's funny you mentioned the Cultural Council. I had a meeting yesterday with Maureen Johnson regarding the downtown beautification project, and we started to talk. She was asking me some of the other things that the EDC is doing right now, and I mentioned this, and then I think we had a very similar conversation to what you might have had with the Cultural Council. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Or there's a lot of overlap, and I think where our heads are at, and I think it would be great to, I also suggested to her that we invite someone from the Cultural Council to an EDC meeting. I'm also happy to go to a Cultural Council meeting, and just make sure that we're coordinating on this, and that we can bring the best from both organizations to this type of event. Specifically, when I think of the Cultural Council, I think for option A, which I guess privately, I lean towards, I have a slight preference towards as well. I think an important thing to make option A successful is having, either one major or a few small things that really create a draw. And I think the Cultural Council, through, artists and, makers and your guys' relationships with those types of occupations, could help bring, a musician or somebody that can really, make the event more of a draw kind of thing. So yeah, I'm happy to collaborate with you guys and brainstorm together on this. I also echo the sentiment that I get the sense that option B is going to be a lot of work. The urine review on its own is a lot of work. And we are working on several other projects at this time. And so I would think that, personally, my preference, given the workload that we're currently managing, would be for option A, because I think supporting in a planning and marketing type role rather than a full implementation role would be more manageable at this time.
One last thing on that, just going back to again what Christy said about the winter stroll. The last couple of years when you sort of changed the format of that and kind of drove people to businesses in conjunction with the event at the Rotary, I found that to be very successful. I think people are, so that might speak to the success of option A. I think when there's an event and people are kind of directed to go downtown, they discover these businesses that are there. And I think it opens up a lot to folks.
Jim, did you have something?
Yeah, I had a question and a comment. Zach, you said that other communities do the option A, the evening openings. What have they learned from that experience? Meaning, do the businesses feel that they benefit? Are there spillover effects? I'm just wondering what type of information you learned.
So if I said that, I might have misspoke. I don't. I have not, gotten to the point in our brainstorming process to start looking at, a ton of other communities, for examples. So I don't know of any. I can't answer your question at this time, basically. But once we get a little bit farther in sort of fleshing these ideas out, or once I have more of a flavor of which one people will lean, I will be looking into other communities and probably conferring with my peers in other communities about what their lessons are from these types of events.
Okay. Comment is, I do know communities that do this, and originally it's the retailers that promote being open later. Restaurants are generally open later anyway in the evening, but the restaurants benefit dramatically from folks that come down to retail shop. I think the key in this is to use the retailers to do promotion of at their own shops, work up to a date where you kick the event off, and then if it becomes a weekly thing, after the initial event, you'll see how successful it is. And if it's successful, then businesses will want to remain open that evening, that Thursday evening, let's say. But the key is to making the initial event successful and surrounding the initial event with things that wouldn't normally be associated with retail. I heard you say music, Zach. I think music is a good thing. There needs to be something in addition to the retail that would bring people to come out in the evening. And it should probably be a temperate climate event, meaning not in the wintertime, because people don't like to go out in the wintertime, but in the spring when people are thinking about being more active, or in the summer when people are more active, or even in the fall when people like to get outside. I think it needs to be well promoted, and there needs to be a build up to it where this group continues to promote it prior to the event so that there's some excitement and the kickoff event is successful.
I think
Understood.
I think it's similar to the winter stroll where there was that one event that brought people downtown. But so I assume that you've already thought about this, but in addition to collaborating with Cultural Council, I would think you would work with the Recreation Department to see. I mean, they do the movies on Bay State. I don't think that's a good sort of marriage of events, but maybe the music or something else that they could help support.
I agree with Jim. I think the starting off with one big splash. I think the winter stroll and the Halloween event and everything just demonstrated what's possible. And I think people need to believe that it'll happen. We many moons ago we did the Moonlight Madness sale at Westborough Shopping Center for about 15 years, and we brought 1,000 cars through that place. But we made it exciting. We shut the stores for an hour. We had Hollywood spotlights. We really, it got so out of hand. We had a hot air balloon one year. We had a, you want to really date myself? We had a Michael Jackson impersonator, and he danced on top of the sound truck. But it was crazy. People couldn't wait. And just one other point is the retailers cooperated. Everybody had T-shirts for the night's event. And the retailers committed to offer really good deals. Mm-hmm. So it became like an event, and people waiting in the park. It was crazy. But everybody's got to be on board and make it a serious event. And there were those who rode on the coattails of others who offered the discounts. And that was unfortunate, because if everybody offers a great deal, you could have every retailer that's open kick in $25, and then at the end that would be $1,000, and you could say, there'll be a drawing at the end of the night, and you can spend that $1,000 at any downtown business you choose, or businesses, or something like that. And from a marketing perspective, having a drum to beat over and over again is a real plus.
Yeah, I think that's really important. All those examples you just gave are great examples, because if there's not some special reason to come down, people will say, oh, I can shop there, during the day, at any day that I want. Why should I come out on Thursday night? But if you make it a special event, like think about the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and the deals that are offered by the stores. People line up the night before, sleep on the street to get those deals. I'm not saying we want people sleeping on the street now, but what I am saying is that we want people to think about that event and really circle it on their calendar so they're sure they'll show up.
That's true. I think the most successful retailer was Westborough Jewelers. Vic, rest his soul, had a policeman out front, only let 2 people in at a time, 40 to 70% off certain cases, and there was a line, like literally a line for the whole event. But he took it seriously.
May I? I think option A is the better option. One of the reasons, as Christy mentioned, is people are short-staffed or they're small business, they don't have a big staff. And either option or B would require people leaving their business. So if we went with option A, many of the businesses are already here and they don't have to go, whereas if you have option B, everybody kind of has to go somewhere else. And they might not, might have to shut their store down to go there. Also, an example, I spent quite a bit of time in Denver the past few years, and they would have something on an artsy, craftsy kind of street that had, art places and restaurants, and they set it up so it was the same, I think it was the first Tuesday or Friday or Thursday of every month. And they, shut down part of one of the lanes and allowed people to come, and it was popular. It was a destination once a month, and Denver's a much bigger city, and they went 12 months of the year as well.
It's the town that I grew up in does like First Fridays, so it's every first Friday.
I think
It's something people can remember.
Yeah.
I think that was the idea when Holly and myself, Claire, and a few other businesses started doing it, was the idea of we just need to pick a day and do it. And it might not work the first month, it might not work the 4th month, but eventually if you make it the first Friday, like it becomes a statement of it's first Friday, and that's when you might do it. So it might not be every time you get the entire town to come down, but if you get a small percentage on a weekly basis, it helps everyone. And on the side of businesses, small business, you have to make decisions on what you commit yourself to. You can't be there 9 to 5 and then stay till 10 o'clock on every Thursday, because at some point you have children and family and all the other things, just like everyone else, that you can't spend 24 hours a day in your business. So it's about deciding what you want to commit to, and it allows, and being the option A allows the business to say, I want to do this, or it makes no sense to me. I run a bakery that opens at 5 in the morning. It makes no sense for me to be open at 10 o'clock at night, where for me, it makes perfect sense because someone's strolling, and that's the time where they might, be out with the husband and wife tandem and decide to buy something that's, outside the normal budget range, and that's where it works for me. And say a Holly or something like that, it's a different sell. So I think I'm behind, obviously, option A, and we'll do whatever we can to help with it, so.
Do we need a
One
motion
final-
here?
I just wanted to say one final thing, sorry. This is just, I get excited about this. This is my wheelhouse. I do a kind of a first Fridays, I call it a free flame Friday. I've been doing it for, I don't know, the last couple of years. And I actually have people sign up ahead of time. I'm not suggesting that, but it does draw people. They get, they know that it's the first Friday on the calendar, and I let them, they come and make beads, and it's free. It's a free event. Anything free, people are really into. So I would love to, I'm happy to help you with this, Zach, and work with you on this. That's all. I'm done.
I don't think, does this need a vote or anything, Zach? This is more just an update, right?
I don't think it needs a vote necessarily. My next step will be, I think it sounds like everybody's pretty in favor of option A over option B, myself included. I will do some thinking over the next couple of months on, like a plan for how we might approach this, including partners that we might reach out to and engage. And I'll start doing some of that footwork to, with the Cultural Council, with the Recreation Department, with folks like Westborough Connects, and to see what we, how we might approach it. And I'll come back with, I guess a plan or a proposed plan, as I guess a further update.
Yeah.
For full disclosure, my aspirational goal would be to kick this off with a big event towards the end of summer. I think it's a good time because it's kind of in between some of the town's other major events. Like we have the block party kind of near July 4th that time, and then Arts in Common is later, like in, I think, early or mid-October, if that's correct.
It's actually the last Saturday in September this year.
Last Saturday in September. So I think mid to late August could be a good time to do something like this, with the caveat that I know some people are away. But that's I guess, what I'll be working towards. And I will, for a future meeting, probably not March, but most likely April, come back to you guys with a more robust plan and ideas. The feedback today has been super helpful, and I love to see people getting excited about it. If at any point in the next month or two, you have an idea for, how we can enhance the event, or, something that we could do to create a draw to the event, even if it's a Michael Jackson imposter, let me know. And, I think I'd be happy to consider anything and look into that. So, but long way of saying I don't think a vote is necessary. I'll come back to you in a couple of months with an updated, more robust plan around option A.
Great.
A suggestion, check the local internet to see other communities that do this and actually go to one of their events. I'd suggest that a couple members of this committee go, or Zach go, to just see what other towns are doing. I like what Dave said. Dave, you obviously had a lot of background on what was going on here before, so certainly you can contribute to that. But I think it's a good idea. I know that there are some communities that are doing a Valentine's Day event this week where they're doing ice sculptures and things, and they're successful. So I'm just throwing out an example, but I think it would be good to see what other communities do.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Anything else before we set it up? I want to make sure. Great, thank you, everyone. So the planning department report from Jim is next. See what you have
Sure.
for us.
So update on planning board projects that are in front of us that might be of interest to this committee. So the 165 Flanders Road, which is the Cumberland Farms campus, you're all aware of Cumberland Farms. They're expanding their campus by building 2 new buildings. One is a 50,000 square foot warehouse. The other is a maintenance building, which is about 17,000 square feet. Nothing exciting here. We're not looking at any large numbers of new employment because, first of all, the first building is scheduled to be a warehouse. Hopefully that is what it's going to be. The second building just being maintenance to service their trucks and other equipment on site. I just wanted to make you aware of that. The public hearing opens this evening. Also, the planning board is proposing 3 zoning articles at town meeting. The first is to just reformat and renumber the sections of the current zoning bylaw. The second one is to make some changes which our review committee considers to be substantive. There'd be word changes and bringing the bylaws up to date. There are actually 75 word changes that we're going to show at town meeting out of full disclosure. None of them will change the meaning of the bylaw. The third article is a signage article that this group has discussed before, allowing projecting signs in the downtown and in the Gateway 2 district. Also transferring authority for signage in the downtown district and in any design review district fully to the design review board. Prior or currently, if you're proposing a signage change in the downtown, you go to the Historic Commission. This would transfer that authority strictly to the design review board because there's overlapping authority now. If you go for a building permit for a door and you also are doing a sign, it would go to the design review board because there's something other than the sign. But if you were just doing your sign, it would go to the Historic Commission. This is to streamline the process and consolidate the review within one commission, which will be the design review board. I think it's more appropriate. The design review board has graphic designers and architects that sit on it. I think it's a clearer process for a future business. And the projecting signs is something that we have a history of in the downtown and something that has been requested and popular with businesses, particularly small businesses. So that's the third article. If you're interested, the public hearing in front of the planning board is Wednesday, the 15th of February, so a week from tomorrow. It's an off night, so I emphasize that. If anyone's interested, we're trying to avoid Valentine's Day, so it's Wednesday, the 15th, at 6:30 in the Forbes building.
Great, is that all?
That's it.
Today, that was a short list today. Great, thank you very much, Jim, appreciate it.
Sorry, Jim, just a quick question. For any of the planning articles that you'll be bringing to town meeting, would you like, or would it be expected to have a letter of support from this board?
Typically, the EDC has given us support. We would need someone to report out on it if that's the case. Otherwise, the letter of support won't be brought up at town meeting. So in the past, we've always had someone prepared to make a statement if they feel so moved, if it would help the article.
Okay, thanks.
Great, anyone else, questions? Nope. Okay,
So sorry, so that is, so then that's a discussion topic for our next meeting.
Indeed.
yes, sorry. Okay, moving on to the, let's see, Community Development Department report from Zach and Fred. Do you guys have anything for us today?
Yep, so we got a couple new businesses to discuss. The first is that Westborough Liquors is a new business that's backfilled the former Westborough Cork and Grain location right down the road at 2 West Main Street. We're excited to see that space be occupied very
Open.
quickly. Medical use is backfilling the former Gerard Survey location at 11 Summer Street downtown. So it's next to, it's the building adjacent to Vivacity Nutrition and,
Moving in there?
I'm sorry?
What is it, moving in there?
It's a medical use.
Medical use, okay.
And a couple of, updates on some of the Otis Street projects. So 64 Otis Street is currently working on fit up. 54 Otis Street is working on their shell, and 66 Otis Street, which is the Cold Harbor building, is moving along with fit up. That's correct. And regarding the EDC programs, as I had alluded to earlier, we met with the our liaison at the Garden Club regarding the downtown beautification project. We plan on, launching the beautification project for this year in March. So we'll post something on our website, post something on the town's website. I believe last year we sent a letter to the community advocate, and I believe our plan is to do that again this year to let people know that they can sponsor the flower pots. I think typically those go out right around Memorial Day and stay out there, kind of through the end of November. There are some upcoming events, which I'll share with you all. On the 14th of February, MAPC is doing a webinar on the specialized stretch code and municipal adoption. So if you have questions or were interested in what Pete was talking about earlier this morning, I encourage you to join on the 14th from 12 to 1:30 p.m. to learn more about that topic. They are also doing a webinar on expanding Greater Boston's industrial base on the 16th from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Also on the 16th from 3 to 4 p.m., the 495 Metro West Partnership is having their Regional Economic Development Working Group. On February 21st from 5:30 to 7 p.m., the Metro West Chamber is having a women's networking event. On the 22nd from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m., the Quarter 9 495 Chamber is having a Small Business Owners Roundtable, which is a monthly recurring event that they do. And on February 28th, the Quarter 9 495 Chamber is having a Super Bowling networking event at Apex Entertainment. So if you're interested in attending, let me know. We can register you on behalf of the EDC. And then finally, on March 22nd, from 4 to 5 p.m., the Metro West Chamber of Commerce is having a rescheduled ribbon cutting for Lionsgate Spiritual and Wellness Center. And that's all I have, unless, Fred, there's anything else you want to add.
Just a question. Do we have any idea when Cold Harbor is projected to open?
Last time I read anything, I saw something in the paper that said spring, but, what does that mean in reality? It's an arbitrary date to keep everyone happy.
There's a ton of attention around it, though, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I only ask because people call and want to know every once in a while, and I don't have a date for them.
Yeah. the paper put, you guys put it in spring in one article at one point, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
That was,
And time marches on.
yeah, exactly, and that was, you know.
yeah, but
exactly.
I know that particular article got
Yeah.
thousands of views. People are revved up about it.
Yeah, excited about it, so.
I have a quick question. Zach, can you tell me again when that Lionsgate ribbon cutting is?
It's on March 22nd from 4 to 5 p.m.
And that's the Metro West Chamber doing that?
Yep.
Anything else, Zach? Was that,
That is all for me.
any questions from anyone else? Nope. Okey dokey. Moving on, does anyone have any other business? Anything they want to bring up? Mark?
Well, Caruth just signed a large lease with the University of Massachusetts
That's great,
at 50 Washington Street. It was a real dogfight
that's great.
getting them. It's very competitive out there for office. West Park Drive extension and the B-Wall Trail is moving along well. And at 118 Flanders Road, Bank of New York Mellon is gearing up to start their construction on about 70,000 feet after they relocated from 4400 Computer Drive.
Wow, that's great.
Great.
That's fantastic. Like to see that people building. It's a good thing. Anyone else have anything for new business? Jim?
Yes, I was looking, the next meeting is March 7th, and I'm not in town that week, so I want to thank this committee for all the years I've served on it. It's amazing because when we started, we were a small group that met in the DPW conference room. And our operation was very grassroots. We reached out to local businesses to see how we could help them, either by having a face-to-face meeting or a phone call, and it was very successful. But to see how far we've come now, making grants to small businesses. Over the years, we developed the awards program to encourage and let local businesses know that we appreciated them. And to see how far this group has come has really been amazing. So it's a credit to everybody that served on it over the years, and I thank you that I've been able to be part of it.
Thank you very much, Jim, for everything. Great. Jim, thank you very much. Does anyone, I don't want to top that, so I guess, does anyone have anything? Should probably get ready. So I'd like to, so make a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second?
Second, okay. Zeph, yes?
Bagden, yes?
Leonardo, yes.
Robbins, yes?
Varro, yes.
Keo, yes?
Williams, yes.
Kenny, yes?
Riley, yes.
All right, great, everyone. Thank you very much. We'll see everyone, you said March 7th at 8 a.m. And any questions, reach out to Zach. Thank you.
9:30 on the dot.
Thanks, everyone.